Okay, so everyone, it is 10:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our live cooking demo today with Chef Mark Owsley, also sometimes referred to as Dan, but truly known as Chef Mark, who's amazing and has been a St. Luke's chef on the F&S team for many, many years now. And we also have dietitian Kyli Gough with us, and she will be helping us out with the nutrition content of this recipe. So, hello Kyli, hello Mark.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear us okay?
We can. If you guys have any issues hearing Mark or Kyli, please type in the chat box. I will be monitoring that as we go through the demo. We are recording this so people can watch this at a later time. And the good news is for those that are attending live, we do have a little bit of swag that we're going to give away as well. So to kick us off, Chef Mark and Kyli are making a multi-grain stew, which is amazing. I actually just taste tested it and I'm really excited because Mark says I get to take some home. So I'm really excited, and they are going to step us through this recipe, and I will be including the recipe in the chat box here in just a moment. So you will have that recipe to take home. So Chef Mark, Kyli, go for it.
All right. Okay. Well, like Max said, Mark Owsley, I'm the chef. I've been here for 9 years. So, and I've been pretty much doing the food business for 40 years now. So excited to do this recipe with you.
Yes, and Kyli, pulling my hair back. I am a registered dietitian here in Twin Falls as well. I work in our community health department now, but love to get to do fun stuff like this. And I also got to try this recipe just before it, and we know it is delicious, so you will love it. So I'll kick it over to Mark to kind of talk about the recipe. We may be referring to him as Dan and myself as Vanna today, because I'll be showcasing the items. So I'll let him take over, and I'll kind of chime in with nutrition information as we go.
Okay, so this recipe here is, I like to create recipes, and one of my favorite ways to create a recipe is have somebody just give me a bunch of ingredients and I just go for it. So that's kind of how this one originated, and it literally has about 20 items in it. So I'll kind of go through the items really quick. We got multiple vegetables. We got diced tomatoes, carrots, corn, peas, kidney beans, garbanzo beans, diced red potatoes, asparagus, and then we got some grains with quinoa, brown rice, and barley. And then we're going to put some fresh basil in with it towards the end. And it's got a few different steps. I started a few of them just so that we can get this all done, about a half-hour frame. So what I've already started is I got a pot over here that has the vegetable stock, and it also has the crushed tomatoes. I've started sauteing some of the vegetables that are still raw, which would be my peppers, my onions, and my celery. And it's about halfway done right now. So I'm going to continue to cook these items. And then at the same time, I use the raw materials as far as brown rice, barley, and quinoa. But there's some quicker methods, which I'll have Kyli show you a couple of quicker methods and items you can buy. And saute over here.
Yeah. I'm gonna do one at a time. So I just wanted to show this. So I'm gonna get lower here so you guys can see. So here we have the quinoa, and Mark does this from scratch, right? Which is great. I think for this recipe you can do as much as you want from scratch or as much as you want convenience. So that's what's kind of nice about it. So I'm showing you here some of these different examples of quick, ready to go grains or products like that. So this is a quinoa and brown rice mix. I don't know if any of you have seen this at the store. So convenient. I have to say I use these all the time just to make my life easier. You basically squish the bag. It's pre-cooked quinoa and brown rice here. You tear the bag about a half of an inch. Let me set this down. And then you microwave this for 90 seconds in the bag, standing. Take it out, voila. So that's one example, quinoa and brown rice. This one's a little bit different. So I have barley here, which again, Mark made from scratch. This is just kind of a quick barley example. You might, I haven't found it here in Twin Falls, but potentially You know, depending on where you are in our system, in Boise or other regions, they might have more products. Barley may be like a frozen section that's pre-done. But this is a quick barley. So pearled, ready to go. Takes about 10 minutes to cook this, boil it up, and it's ready to go. So just another quick example for barley, because I think these are the things that might be a stopping point for some people when it comes to cooking them, that they, you know, may feel like it takes too much time. So quick another recipe here. And then lastly, just the brown rice, same example, 90-second bag, a different brand here. I think these are $1.98 at Walmart is where I got this one. This is Uncle Ben's, so there's a variety of these different products. Super easy, again, 90 seconds, and it's done. So I think it's really nice to have those things, and I think the same example applies to our vegetables. I call this a Sunday dicing event type of recipe, where you just would take a lot of the vegetables, get them all, I'm ready to go, and just dice. I mean, you could do that. We're so fortunate today that so many things are convenience as well, so you could often get many pre-diced vegetables if that's your, you know, what you want to go to. So it's just a kind of cost, time sort of scenario. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mark to saute.
Perfect timings, because our vegetables are just about done. I did put those in a little bit of olive oil and garlic, and you can kind of smell the garlic throughout the room right now. So what I'm going to do now is I have a boiling stock here that has, like I said, the vegetable stock and the tomato crust in there. So I'm going to add the sauteed vegetables to it. Okay. And what makes this recipe, you know, once you have all your mise en place ready, which just has all your recipes in place, you know, so you're all organized, you can just kind of, I have it all organized to things that have to cook a little bit longer, to the other items that I'm just going to put in there, and so they're all pre-cooked. So the recipe originally says to throw the potatoes in raw, which you can do, but I pre-cooked them just so they'll be a little bit faster. And so I'm going to, as soon as this comes to a boil, which it has, I'm going to let that kind of simmer for about 5 minutes. And then what I also like to do is when I'm prepping a meal like the stew here, is I have everything pulled out and organized, so I don't have to go for one thing. I don't have to go for tomato. I don't have to go for asparagus. I don't have to go for peppers. I get everything pulled out before I start chopping. Another thing I like to do when I'm organizing is, first of all, I'm going to put my cut glove on, which is a safety feature for us. Put a rubber glove on top of that. Okay, if I'm cutting a vegetable, I always have a discard bowl. So every time you don't turn around, every time you turn around, you might have to throw like the seeds or the cores away. You can just do it all in one big step here while you're prepping. So I got my bowl right here, and I'll put all of my discarded ingredients in one bowl and just have to make one trip to the garbage can. So I'm going to set that aside for a minute. When you're cutting something, it's always good to hold the knife properly. If you're cutting with a finger, like which a lot of people do, is you don't have very good control of your knife. So it's always slipping around. So if you take this and pinch the knife, you got all the control of the knife. Make sure you use a sharp knife because it's safer than a dull knife. It cuts through stuff a lot easier. And then I always say cut as fast as you're comfortable. So, and I always use my fingers like this, and just kind of you cut through like that. And like I said, just go as fast as you're comfortable. And then you can kind of just, dice stuff up however chunky you want it. The good thing about a stew is it can be a little bit more thicker and hearty with the ingredients. So that'd be about right there. So I'm going to move that aside for now. Okay. And I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to dice a little bit of basil. That's going to be the final ingredient for this when we're finished. Another thing I mentioned too is every time I get stored and I get vegetables and stuff, is I always wash them no matter what. I wash them when I get home, and then I wash them again before I use them. So this I'm just going to go, I love basil. It makes everything smell and taste better. So.
And in the room here, we can smell it It smells amazing.
And I'm gonna kind of just do a coarse chop with it.
And what do you mean by coarse chop, Mark?
It means just so it's like maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. Minced would be something that's really, really, really small, almost pureed as minced. So I just want to kind of do a coarse, and I'll show you what that is here in a minute.
And why coarse versus minced in this recipe?
I just like it so you see some nice pieces of basil in it. You can use the minced because you can use the pesto for this if you like.
Mm.
So that has like minced, it has the garlic, it has the basil, it has the olive oil. It does have pine nuts, so be careful if you have a nut allergy. But you can use pesto if you like. This is just a personal preference to have a course on this. And if you'd like, anywhere you can use dry basil, and I would throw that probably in at the start of the cooking process. But if I do this towards the end, it kind of holds its color in there. We'll just put it right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more stuff to the stew. I'm going to add the garbanzo beans, kidney beans, we got corn. We'll add the potatoes.
And you did boil those before?
Yes,
correct?
the potatoes were cooked till they're tender already. Probably about 15 minutes boiling. We had carrots. Starts with a C. We got asparagus, frozen peas, and fresh tomatoes. And as you look, it's already starting to get a little bit hearty. So I'm going to let that boil, come to a boil again. And then after it comes to boil, it'll simmer for about 5 more minutes. And then we'll add the rest of the grains. And pretty much after you do that, and you bring it to a boil, it's pretty much ready to go. So another thing you can do with this recipe too, you know, for personal preferences, you like something a little bit spicier, maybe throw some jalapenos in there. So, I mean, I like jalapenos, how they'll bring the temp up and they got good flavor also. Like proteins, this is actually a nice vegan dish, but you can actually add, if you want to add chicken to it, you can use chicken stock if you like, so you can kind of mess around with the recipe if you like.
So this recipe, just so you all are aware, it is dairy-free, gluten-free. Again, it is a vegan recipe, so it's very plant-based, very nutritious. There is so much fiber in this recipe. I think Mac will show the recipe again for all of you, and we'll have it available to send out so you can see the nutrition facts and the ingredients. But it is hearty, hence the name, and it is really a warm, delicious stew for fall, winter sort of time frame. So this has, I think, over about 5 or more grams of fiber, and that's considered essentially almost an excellent source. Very good to high. So it's really filling, which is really nice about it too. So it doesn't have to, or a meat that we sometimes think is what's filling to us, but fiber is really what's filling. And so this dish is a very nutritious, very filling recipe.
And you can use it for a main course, or you can use it for an entree. So either way on that, because like Kyli said, it's very, very hearty, and kind of a weird chef. So I'm not like a chef that likes a lot of vegetables in my stuff, but this, I would eat this. This tastes excellent.
And that's what I told Mark, this could be what I call, well, at my house we have garbage omelet day, which is essentially what's all my leftover vegetables, and I make them into an omelet. In some fashion, this could be, granted there are some main ingredients that want to have, you could be your garbage soup or garbage stew with whatever vegetables you kind of have remaining at the end of the week to dice up and throw in here. That's what's so nice about soups and stews in general, is that it's really your preference and flavor, your palate, and what you have at home that you can use in these sort of dishes that make it so nice. And it can be, boiling it on the stove top like this. It can be a crock pot, an Instant Pot, all those sort of things that we have today that make our life easier. We have all those kind of varieties that would work really well with this recipe.
And then also there'll be a little bit of pepper we'll add to it too. So I'm going to just put like a little pinch of pepper here. And we've already cleaned the oil, so we're going to let that go for about 5 more minutes.
And Mark, did you tell them about your base? vegetable stock?
No. So on the vegetable stock, when you buy vegetable stock at the store, sometimes it's kind of a little bit bland. So you can add a little bit of salt to it if you want a little bit of flavor, just for personal preference or not. Because all of this stuff and the basil and the garlic add lots of flavors also. There is something called a vegetable base, and they have it like the Smart Foods. And so the base, you can actually throw as much vegetable base in your stock until it comes to the right flavor that you like. So when you're checking your flavors, always use a plastic spoon because using a metal spoon, you might get a metallic, flavor and stuff. So a plastic spoon will give you the accurate flavor of what you got going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little taste. Everybody is away from me. And cooking, there's a lot of smell, taste, feel when you're doing the cooking. So sometimes it's a little tough with the mask and stuff, but at home, this is perfect, so you don't have to use a mask at home. So I'm going to do a little taste just for the stock purposes. So I'll get way away from here. Oh, that's perfect. So, yeah. Okay, we put this here and I'll get this here. Really quick. And today, even at home, it's kind of this, it's the new way of cooking. If you're at my house, you'll see sanitizer where I'm cooking. so it's even different at home. I even wear rubber gloves at home. Okay, so this is just about to a boil. Okay, we're just doing a little bit of waiting game. Is there what comes to a boil? Is there anything else we can?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for us or anything like that while we're kind of letting this simmer and finish off the recipe? I think that in a nutshell is the recipe itself. We would be happy to answer questions for anybody about it or general nutrition questions, general chef expert in that area questions, anything like that.
Kyli,
oh, sorry, say that again.
this is Mac, and we do have a question. The question is it essential to pre-cook the grains? I usually let the grains cook with the veggies.
Okay, so in the stew.
Okay, so the reason why I do this raw state first and cook it, because sometimes you can go from it being cooked to perfect to continuing to cook, and sometimes it could make things a little bit mushy, and that's why I kind of like to add on towards the end. Yes, you can do that, but you'd have to pull it out, right when it's done.
And you have to think about each grain separately when you're doing that too, right? Quinoa versus a brown rice versus barley have different cooking times themselves, so you would need to put them in according to that to make sure, like to Mark's point, something's not getting overcooked or undercooked.
And then there's like extra starch in this too. So when you throw this in, if you're cooking it from raw to finished product, what I do in my barley is I'll rinse it really quick once it's cooked. But if you throw it in or stuff, it could. I like presentation on my dishes and stuff, so it could make it a little bit cloudy. Starch.
That's great. Thank you.
The same thing with the potatoes, actually.
Oh, good call. One other question. What is the difference between a soup and a stew?
Okay, so a stew is almost, it's kind of like a soup. I would just say it's like a heartier, thicker version of a soup. I mean, so you got less broth in there. I mean, you still got lots of broth and stuff, but it's really thick. Every bite you just got lots of chunks of goodies on it. Soup can actually be, it can be just like a consommé where it's just very clear and there's no bulkiness to it at all. It can be a pureed soup. It can be, there's just lots of different versions of soup.
And
so
one thing they say with that too is, I mean, often the soup, it has to be served in a bowl, right? Because it's very liquid versus sometimes a stew, depending on its heartiness, could actually be served on a plate. Yeah. That's a good way to look at that.
Nice sour
Good idea,
soup bowl.
yeah.
That's okay. So I'm going to add all the grains now. Rice, barley, and the quinoa. And again, there's different types of quinoa. I like the tricolor just again for presentation purposes. And I'll start this, and just basically has to come to a boil, and this will be finished.
I think that's another thing that's very nice about this recipe is pretty well everything was done, other than, I mean, sauteing some of those vegetables that were raw. It's pretty well cooked in advance of going into the bowl, so you're almost essentially reheating and getting the boil and then simmering to the, right temp for you guys to serve. So.
All right. Do we have any more questions or?
I'm looking at the chat box and it does not look like we have any other questions, but just a little trivia question, Mark. What is it called when you have everything in place, ready to go, cooking style? Like, I think there's a term. What do you call that?
Yeah, it's called a mise en place.
Mise en place, I like it.
Yeah. I think it's French term and stuff. It just means everything in place so you really don't have to go away from. Again, like I said, I like to be fully organized when I'm cooking. So I have everything put out in front of me. So I don't go any further than like what you've seen. I just grab it here and cook with it. So, yeah, good question though.
Makes you more efficient, more organized, also makes cleanup easier. All of the above.
Most definitely. So Mark, how
So
come
wish you were in the room with us, all of you, to taste this delicious recipe. It is very, very good. We hope that you'll make it at home to be able to try.
And this batch, this recipe came from, it's a bigger batch. So again, if you do an entree or whether it's just a cup, an entree, you're probably going to feed 8 people probably, I would imagine. But this is a good item to use for leftovers too. Personally, at home, I make a big batch and I do a food saver with a bunch of little bags, and I have organized my freezer that way with this and other dishes.
Yes, Mark is a pro at cooking meals in advance and freezing them. We do have one more question. It says, a few people use tomatoes as a base for stews. Would you suggest as a substitute for those allergic to tomatoes? And then how long would this last in the freezer?
Oh, in the freezer? So if you do a vacuum pack, honestly, I have stuff in there that lasts up to a year. And I've used stuff for longer than that, but you're generally going to go through it faster. But if you just put in like a Ziploc bag or something where air gets in it, you can those. And I would say no more than a couple of months with that. That's why I like the food saver, because it kind of gets all the air out of there and holds it fresh for a long time. So this is a boiling, so I'm going to add the last step, which is the basil. And the reason you don't have to put this in the fresh product is once you mix it, all those flavors of the basil just kind of escapes into the stew. So it's pretty quick. And
Matt, could you ask us another question that I think we sort of missed?
Oh,
yes. So no, that's just fine. It's few people use tomatoes as a base for stews. What would you suggest as a substitute for those allergic to tomatoes?
Well, you can go without the tomato in there. You could probably just bulk up on a couple of the more of the vegetables into that. I personally, I like tomatoes in my soups and my stews and stuff, except for the beef stew. I won't throw tomato in there, but yeah, you can just make it without it. Just add a little bit more of the ingredients.
I think it does give it that heartier stew-like. Obviously, the crushed tomatoes, and that's what you're saying for stews in particular. I mean, if you didn't do those, it's likely more soup-based. And I can't really think of a great alternative for the flavor, but I'm thinking too, what you could always do is like a cornstarch thickener within your soup base without the tomato, just to thicken it for a stew-like kind of mouthfeel, if that's something you're going for.
So that's called a slurry. And so how you do that is you just mix a little bit of cornstarch with water, and as your soup or your stew comes to a boil, just slowly add it in, and it'll come right to the thickness you want.
Because you have a lot of great flavor in this recipe, even without the tomato. So, I mean, it would, of course, slightly change it, but I don't think it's key, necessarily you couldn't do without.
There is one more thing you could do, is you could get some roasted peppers in a can and puree that up, and that can be pretty close to a tomato. It'd be really close, except you have the pepper flavor in there.
That's a great call, actually. I can't think, what are the tomatoes, or the peppers in the can?
Pimentos?
Pimentos. That would be really good.
Yeah. So that would be a good sub there.
I love it.
I am going to plate this up and show you the presentation plate.
And
Kylie,
it's already done over here.
Yes.
it's magic, right? Kylie, I have a question. What would you say is a serving soup? Is it 1 cup, 2 cups? For those who don't see the recipe.
For the recipe itself, because it says 12 servings, I'd say about 1 cup or 1 ladle, like he had, first he's thinking 2. So about right what Mark's gonna show you. I'll bring the camera forward.
Okay, thanks.
Then I'm going to garnish with a little fresh sprig of basil.
Beautiful.
So again, all those fun colors, even the tricolored quinoa, you can see the different colors it shows in this stew. I think it tastes great. It looks great. Yeah, and so.
It's a winner.
Yes, enjoy. I hope you guys make it.
Yeah, thank you, Kylie and Mark. For everyone on the call, you guys are going to get a little swag for attending. We have some reusable straws and measuring spoons that Kylie graciously offered. So I've made a note of who's attended today. So all of you will get a little bit of swag for coming, which is awesome. And this soup looks so yummy. I'm excited for all the soups to come this holiday season. And if you are interested in more recipes from different employees across the system, there will be a new edition of the Sample St. Luke's recipe book coming out from our team. And I just did an edit on it last night, reviewed what our team has put together. And it looks incredible, and there's lots of amazing soups in there too. So start with this one to kick you off, and we will see you guys at our next live event. Thanks.